This is the Australian Mobile DJ Podcast. In this series, we'll talk to them, get to know them, and learn from them. And here's your host, DJ Bevo.
Hey, this time we're jumping on a plane and heading to South Australia. Yep, we're in the capital, Adelaide, catching up with a man who has won multiple awards as a wedding entertainer, including Best MC in South Australia. I've lost count how many times he's won this award. He's been a finalist, he's been a winner multiple times, and he's, of course, taken out the national award for the Australian Bridal Industry Awards. His name is Ben Ford from DJ Ben Events, and he's on the phone right now. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Bevo. How are we today?
Wonderful, and it's very exciting to be talking to a South Australian for the very first time in this podcast, so welcome. We're all inclusive here at the Australian Mobile DJ Podcast.
Great stuff. Very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, let's just get straight to the chase. How many awards have you won so far? Because I apparently went on the website and it's not quite up to date. You've taken it out so many times.
Yes, I have. 5 awards, 4 state awards, and then the national one last year, which was what a buzz. That was great.
Yeah. So that's as an MC, but you're also a DJ, which is your core skill. How did that start for you? I remember years ago hearing a bit about working in nightclubs with some of the radio personalities from SAFM back then.
Yeah, so I was 16 when I started, a very, very shy young boy, and wasn't like I followed in the footsteps of any friends. It was just an idea that I'd had that I could probably be a DJ. I had a ton of CD singles as they were back in the day, and basically just approached my old primary school and said, do you still do school discos? I think I could probably be the DJ. And they kind of said, well, we don't have a DJ. We basically have some Year 7 girls that record songs off the radio onto cassette.
Wow.
That's how they did it back then. So
that's
for them,
cheeky.
the idea of having the idea of them to have a DJ was just, that was new technology kind of back then. This is 1993, by the way.
Yeah.
So I took on the role, and at the end of the disco, the school principal comes up and kind of said, look, can I have your business card? And I said, business card? I don't have a business. Why would I have a business card? And he said, you do this professionally, don't you? And I said, I don't. This is just a bit of an idea. And he goes, I think you should do this. It's good personality, and the kids have had a great time, and you're easy to talk to, and so that was really the start of it. I was 16. It just kind of grew from there. I ended up doing the school discos for that school every year for quite a few years until the popularity of that grew. I ended up doing schools in the area. I ended up doing my high school one, which was a big deal. I did a lot of the private schools in Adelaide, and within about 5 years, I was working 2 or 3 nights a week in nightclubs, Fridays and Saturday nights every weekend. So,
a bit of a change of crowd when you go from primary school discos to nightclubs. And I've heard all sorts of your stories, including, there's crowds going all down the street and around the corner and so forth and bits and pieces. Do you want to fill us in on a couple of those little tales that you've got to share with, I believe you work with Sam Mack and Higo as well?
Yes, I was lucky enough to land one particular night spot which started back in 2004. It was a place in Adelaide called the Highlander, and the Highlander was a venue which had been open for years, but they decided to do a bit of renovation and remarket the whole idea that it had always been a band venue. It was quite well known for that, but they wanted to do an upmarket place where kind of young adults would come along for pop music and stuff. So they decided to run a Friday night with a DJ and 2 MCs, and the 2 MCs that they landed were both radio personalities here in Adelaide. Those two guys were Sam Mack, who's now gone ahead to do big things on Sunrise as the very vivacious and quite good-looking weather presenter on Sunrise, and then another guy called Higo, who ended up leaving the Highlander about a year later to pursue hosting the Hot 30 countdown around the country. So both those guys went on to do big things. But yeah, it was a fun night that involved lots of interactive games with the crowd. We had, I remember one night I was showing Big Brother up late on the TVs, and there was some vision of some housemates sitting in the spa. So quite randomly, Sam X decided to entice some girls from the crowd to sit inside the fountain that was inside the venue to recreate that scene. And I think that a lot of the influences I received watching those guys so flawlessly being able to entertain crowds and be so spontaneous with their ideas led me on to kind of what I'm doing now. I'm not getting people to sit in fountains, but I am involving crowds at the weddings that I do these days. That's a big part of what I do.
Yeah, let's go there. Multi-awarded wedding entertainer. So you're not just a DJ, you are a wedding entertainer. So it shows, especially when you've won the award as Best Wedding MC, not only in South Australia, but also Australia, like the big one.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate fun and games and what you do in your weddings?
So I basically, I'm quite lucky, I suppose, in the fact that once I realised that this was something that I really enjoyed including in many of the weddings I was doing, I decided to kind of bite the bullet and basically brand myself as being someone that was the games guy. So probably in the last 5 or 6 years now, I've branded myself that, and people that come to me looking for essentially a DJ, I sort of straight up say, look, I also MC, it's a big part of what I do, and at 99.9% of the weddings that I do, I also run games. And most people's first reactions are like, what? What do you mean? And so I just talk them through the idea about how would you like a wedding where your guests aren't necessarily bound to their chairs all night. We can get them out of their chairs, we can get them running around the room, we can get them involved in dance-offs where people are blindfolded, quiz games where the questions are about the bride and groom, shoe swapping games. People sort of take their clothes off and stuff. I like the weddings I do.
Oh, hello.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's pretty crazy and out of control, but it's working and everyone has a great time, and yeah, it's really, really fun. Fun for me, it means that I get to be in my element. I've always been a pretty kind of wacky, kind of think outside the box kind of person, and I love nothing more than just making people smile and laugh and have a great time. So
yeah, it's amazing because you kind of picture yourself wedding DJ. You just think, oh yeah, he's the guy that just sets up the flashing lights in the corner and plays the music, but it's certainly become a lot bigger than that in this century and this decade.
Yeah.
And you're the man doing it in South Australia.
Well, I've always liked the idea, like I kind of touched on before, that, a wedding, it's such a special and an iconic day. I like to kind of really be honest with couples up front and kind of say, there's no mold here, there's no rules. You can really have this night and this day how you like. It doesn't necessarily need to be like every other wedding you've been to. Why would you want that, really? You want something unique, you want something memorable, and you want your guests to be able to walk away and quite honestly say to you, that's the best wedding we've ever been to. We've never had so much fun. And that's probably one of the most common things I get from feedback from couples, is to say that the guests are just like, wow, what on earth was that? Because it was so much fun.
Yeah, I can imagine it'd be a whole lot of fun, not only for yourself, but also the guests and, of course, your clients. I just want to touch on another thing too. You're just talking to me before the beginning of the podcast about producing music. This is another avenue you've been going down the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yes, I've been writing dance music now for almost 20 years in my studio here at home. I've played the piano since I was 8. So I can play by ear really, really well. I can read music fairly well. And I play the piano every day without fail at home. And in the last 15 years, been writing electronic dance music, a lot of rave music, a lot of kind of high, fast, crazy stuff that will make your hair turn grey. I ran a radio show in Adelaide that played all that stuff for 8 years, and so it served a big purpose there. But the area that I'm really focusing on now is writing instrumental music, basically probably towards heading. I'd love to be able to be writing music for film and TV and gaming. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very gratifying.
What kind of tools do you use to produce those beats? What's the software that you like to use?
I'm an absolute avid fan of Logic Pro. So it's it's been the sequencer that I've used for ever since 2003. I started with Logic, and it was made by a small little company called eMagic. It was then bought out by Apple, I think, around about 10 or 11 years ago. And basically now, in order to run Logic Pro, you need to have an Apple computer, which a lot of people shun on, but I love it because at the end of the day, it's my baby. I really treat Logic like, well, this is the sequencer that gets me to be able to create the ideas and create the magic that I have in my head. I can put it down on the piano and create orchestral music. It's quite seriously it's one of my absolute favorite things to do is to sit in my studio and just let my fingers kind of transcribe the tunes that I have in my head.
Awesome. DJ Ben from DJ Ben Events, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Hey, tell us, for those people listening, how can we get in touch with you if they've got any questions?
Best way to get in contact with me is definitely through Facebook. I don't have Instagram. My website's pretty bad. So Facebook is the one to go to. So Facebook's, Facebook.com/DJ Ben Events. I'm always up for chat. I love chatting to people, and I will do whatever I can to, not necessarily always push people to book me, but just to kind of give them the best advice into booking a DJ, booking an MC. People that book me for their wedding also get lots of valuable advice as far as timeline and where to place things in the room and how to best run your night so that everyone has a fantastically fun night. The bride and groom can relax and everyone goes home happy and they're still smiling when their head hits the pillow. Ah, so nice.
And then you'll just have this picture of DJ Ben in your face. That guy is so funny.
It's been 25 years. Let's continue for another 25.
Thanks again, DJ Ben.
Good on you. Thanks, Bevo. Love your work.
From Adelaide, that is DJ Ben. And, of course, if you want to reach out and talk to us anytime, DJ Bevo at me, or you can sign up for the Facebook group, Australian Mobile DJs. This has been the Australian Mobile DJ podcast.
The Australian Mobile DJ podcast was hosted by DJ Bevo and produced by Matt Fulton Productions.